Hi, welcome to Café with Controversy, the podcast where we debate about issues relevant to you. Today's topic is going to be on America's collapse. Now it's time to introduce our hosts. I'm Faith.
I'm Pheonix. I'm Pal.
And I'm David.
Now, today, our first topic is going to be our demise won't come from zombies or the Mayan calendar. What this means is how the America's collapse will happen.
The main problem with America right now is our economy.
Yeah, we're $14 trillion in debt, and that's trillion with a T.
One of the other main problems we've got is the collapse of our dollar bill.
Which leads us to a topic, when money stops growing on trees.
Yes. Now, the collapse of the dollar is probably likely as the dollar becomes worth less and less. We used to have one of the strongest currencies in the world, and now it's just declining. Everything costs more. Unless we switch to something that actually is worth a substantial value, we are going to have our American dollar collapse, considering that the American dollar is just an IOU note and is not really worth anything. Once our government stops working, you won't be able to buy a sheet of paper for money because money is worth less than paper.
Well, yeah, and I don't think that we need to switch to a new currency. We just need to find ways to increase the value of our currency.
Right.
Because, honestly, the way that we can do that is basically just to begin more infrastructure projects and generate revenue throughout the country.
We need to have a reliable government that can back the worthless paper that we have.
Another reason that the money used to be worth a lot more is it used to be backed off in gold.
Exactly.
A dollar bill is just saying, you actually have this much gold. But sometime they decided that there wasn't enough gold to support all the money that we were going to need. So they switched it. So paper is now just paper.
Yeah,
that supposedly means something.
Right, but say in practice it actually does. I mean, we all know that it's really just an IOU, but in practice it works for buying everything that we need to buy. The problem is, as the dollar starts paying less, I mean, the same problem would actually exist in gold if you say, oh, okay, for a book, instead of charging so many grams of gold, I'm going to charge twice that amount of gold. It's really the same problem.
Well, at least it's backed by something that has real value. All our money is backed up by now is our government strength, and as the government continues to have its debt raised, we're just going to lose the government's ability to control things. So.
Well, the government has pretty much already lost their ability to control things.
Their credibility
Right,
is
and
horrible,
I mean, I don't really think, after that whole fiasco, does anyone actually have faith in the government anymore?
Well, no, not really.
I'm sure there are some people, but you might have to search pretty hard to find them.
They did a poll to ask how many people had faith in Congress. They said 7%, and a news reporter went to New York City and asked everybody she saw if they had faith in Congress. She found one person who said he did, and he said he liked everything. Every single time they went to somewhere, he would say that he liked that place or he liked the world's worst pizza, and
So his argument is invalid.
yeah.
According to today's Gallup poll, it says that 78% of people who are polled think that the economy is getting worse, whereas only 17% think it's getting better. And then, of course, there's some gaps there. And apparently, the underemployed are at 18.1%, and unemployed is at 9.1%, which is up 1%. And of course, Obama's approval rating. Let's not even get into that.
Yeah, poor guy. I mean, I honestly feel bad for him because it's not only his fault. Note, only.
Yes, it's not only his fault.
So going on the topic of spending and our Congress, let's go on to. And the IRS gets on you for not paying your bills, buying a Lamborghini when you can't afford food. Obvious hyperbole there.
Yes, this is clearly referring to the excessive debt that we're in.
So obviously, different people have different ideas on what we should reduce spending on. So who has some ideas?
Well, first of all, I would like to say that with the country on the verge of collapse and $14 trillion in debt, why do we continue to keep spending on stuff that isn't necessary? We need to be getting our priorities straight.
Yes, and I think that what some of the biggest things that we spend our money on are the things that we need to, work hardest to reduce in terms of spending, because things like the defense budget, those like that, we don't need to spend all that money on a mission to kill what's basically 40 people. I mean, that's all Al Qaeda is.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yes, I agree that defense does need to be cut, but I don't think that's the main problem because entitlements are really the biggest portion of the country's
Well, I would like
spending.
to say something on the defense thing too before we get on to another subject. Is yes, the defense I don't think is the main problem either, but David is right when he says that we don't need to be going and spending money on a war that we shouldn't be in.
Agreed. I agree. It's a pretty pointless war by this point, and it's also, I mean, yeah, it keeps you safe and whatnot, but I mean, it's the ideal of, we're fighting the war to keep you safe, but I mean, it's really not. There's a really clear purpose to it at this point, not that anyone can see at any rate, and I mean, so that needs to be cut, and obviously, I mean, entitlements, a lot of that, you get no return on your investment whatsoever. It sounds heartless, but it's the truth, and that should be cut too.
I mean,
not not completely cut off forever, but reduced.
I know,
Yeah.
but when you just said you don't get anything back from it, well, you do. It just takes longer for your investment to be validated. It's like if you start paying for it when you're 18 and you start living alone and such, when you turn 65 and you get the benefits of that, then then you're gonna be like, well, great, this is a great program. And plus, we shouldn't try to cut programs that increase our value or increase the value of living or the standard of living for American citizens when we can cut so much more that doesn't really help us.
Okay, now we have to talk about a new topic. 10% of 1 million isn't 10K.
Right. So, I mean, this obviously is about taxation, and here we're assuming that each citizen has to pay 10% of income. Obviously, that's not the case, but just as a, hypothetical number. Say you make $100,000 a year, you have a nice job, you can get along well, and you pay 10% of taxes. Okay, that's what? Like
Yeah, that's
$10,000, right? But say you someday started out at $100,000 and then you worked your way up the corporate ladder because you worked really hard, and now you earn $1 million a year. How much more do you have to pay just because you worked really hard?
But the problem is the government is taxing those who make a larger salary an even higher percent, despite the fact that they still pay more. If you make $1 million, you're still going to be paying more than the person who makes $100,000. It's just common sense. And saying that they aren't paying their fair share is not true either, because they are. They're paying the 10% required, and they're even paying more than the person who's making less. Raising it is just requiring them to pay even more, and it's not really required because they already are paying more.
Correct.
Well, actually, if you think about it, some of the richest Americans, they don't mind paying more. Like Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, they don't actually mind paying more.
Well, at
They
a
know that their
certain
tax
point,
dollars are going to be.
well, at a certain point, when you're so rich it doesn't even matter. Well, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, but there are some people who are still rich that it still matters to because they're not
Exactly.
super mega rich.
Exactly. Let's say that they are still, they're paying a car loan, they're paying a mortgage, they have expenses for their children, they still have, people to feed, and say that they also want to do, everyone wants them to have some discretionary spending. So, even if you cut back on that, you still have a ton of expenses there.
But if you think about it, 10% out of $13,000 is going to be more to them, to the person who works and doesn't make as much money, than it's going to be to somebody who's rich and can easily make more money. And so
It's not really easy, to be honest. Most of the top earners have to work really long hours to get what
Yeah.
they get.
well, really, if they make $100,000 a year, like if you're a CEO or an executive and you make $100 million a year, if you make $1 million a year as a CEO, then you're going to make that million whether you're off vacationing in the Bahamas or you're sitting in your office, talking to the board of directors.
Not really, because if you're out vacationing in the Bahamas all the time, you'll probably get kicked out.
Well, no, not really. If you're the CEO.
Well, you're still at the mercy of the board of directors.
Yeah.
Exactly, except if the board of directors, if they're just out vacationing in the Bahamas too.
You do realize that that this is a very hypothetical situation
Yes.
that is
Right.
not
I know,
going
I'm
to
just
happen
using-
in the real world.
In the
for the
real world,
purpose-
most CEOs
It's
are
the-
just...
It's for the purpose of debate. And in the real world, most CEOs are probably engaged in something criminal.
Okay.
If you think about it. Not most CEOs, like most CEOs of like regular companies, but I'm
All
talking
right.
about the big Wall Street companies.
We have to get on to another
Next
topic.
The broken ring circus running our country. Yes, this is a play on Obama's speech, the three-ring circus. But
Yes. Our first topic, what Washington warned about, clearly is a play on political parties, because Washington warned us specifically that we should not get into political parties. What is your view on this?
Political parties can be a good thing if they're not used in the way that they've been used for the last 200 years. I mean, political parties can actually help people, meet with other people who they like, and not who they like, but who agree with, and, it can also be a way to separate people for the purpose of debate. But when political parties just become something that you vote on just arbitrarily because of what they call themselves, and that's what the party system really starts to.
Exactly. Like, you're allowed to have your own views. That's a good thing. And spirited debate's also a good thing. But the problem is, it's like you said, it's just becoming something where if you're a Republican, you'll vote for a Republican and not think about the Democrats, whereas the Democrats will do the exact same thing.
right. And the problem is that most of the candidates end up appealing to the extremes because there aren't as many people in the center.
Exactly.
I mean, there aren't really such a defined center, but I think most people would find center people more reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, they don't sell as well, which is why you have the same reason why advertisers will choose to go for TV networks that are either extreme left or extreme right.
Since the beginning of time, people have been going to either one extreme or the other, and that's just not the way that most people think, but they feel like they have to go that way just because of the party system.
Exactly.
And because they have no other choice.
Mm-hmm. Our next topic, I care about everyone until I'm safely in office.
Oh, those poor politicians.
I mean, it's true. I mean, all they care about is re-election, and you'll see, I mean, they're just positioning themselves to look, so people can look at them in a more favorable light, so when election time comes, no matter that they're really ineffective, they still look like a really good candidate.
They really don't care about doing anything for you. They just care about getting into office, which will lead into our subtopic called Platforms Include Death and Unemployment.
See, that's an extreme view. Like, not all politicians are concerned about re-election. Like, there are some politicians that, actually care about fixing things.
It's still the minor percent.
Right.
Yes, it's a small percent, but that's the percent that people should be voting for.
But it doesn't necessarily mean that people
doesn't
will, because the people that only care about re-election, they tend to be polling and
grandiose and spending hundreds of
Exactly,
thousands of
and they'll
dollars
to get people to notice them.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Whereas the people who care are working too hard to really do everything else. So.
All right, and quickly, just to cover our last topic, our last major topic, the common misconceptions of the average American. And going in, God bless America, the greatest nation in the universe, the win in a can philosophy. So
Basically, we are overtaken by nationalism, where we are so blinded by our quote-unquote awesomeness that we can't see that there are other things in the world that are more important than being the quote best nation in the world.
Well, really, if you really want to be the best nation in the world, and this is a message to all the politicians, if you want to be the best nation in the world, then you should work on improving the country for the better by just doing for the people. And America doesn't have to be the best at everything.
I think also part of the problem is that a lot of people don't really place emphasis on education,
Yes.
which is a problem because then, I mean, the people who are educated are those who will be our future leaders.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, instead of education, we're learning things that really don't matter in real life, as well as our education system. We're I'm not sure what the percentage is at now, but we're definitely behind a lot of countries.
We really are.
I think we're 25th in math.
Yeah, I think it's 25th